Thank you very much, Katrina Lantos-Sweat, for your warm introduction. At the helm of the Lantos Foundation, you have always been a force for combating anti-Semitism, promoting religious freedom, and carrying on the legacy of your wonderful father, our former colleague, Mr. Chairman Tom Lantos. As House Speaker, it's an honor to bring the greetings of the members, to faith leaders and friends of the Netherlands gathered here as we present the Anne Frank Award is presented to our friend and good and former colleague and leader in the Congress, Nita Lowey. I'd also like to acknowledge our loving heaven, Stephen, who joins us here today. I'm sure he's been recognized, but I want you to know the friendship we have for him in the Congress. And thank you, Mr. Ambassador, and the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands for the invitation to join this celebration today. You all don't know this, but I have two grandchildren who are, whose father is Dutch. They speak Dutch, so we have a Dutch connection here. They spend a good deal of time in the Netherlands. Representatives Ted Deutsch and Kay Granger, two co-chairs of the House Bipartisan Task Force on Combating Anti-Semitism. It's so important. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, what a beautiful story about the tree. I know the tree, but now how it will be spread to more places so more people understand you've been a tireless voice for the Jewish American community and for Jews throughout the world. And again, David Saperstein, where's David? Who was here, there he is, hi David, who received the inaugural Anne Frank Award in 2014 and served as America's Ambassador for International Freedom. I congratulate Amnon Avshi Weinstein for receiving the Special Recognition Award. The story of Violins for Hope is deeply moving, harnessing the power of the arts to preserve and share the unique stories of the people of the Holocaust. And has been mentioned, as you know, the west front of the Capitol, a sapling from the original chestnut tree. What a beautiful story, and thank you for your leadership. I want to just tell you this story. When I was a teenager, the book, The Diary of Anne Frank, came out, and it was so revealing. I mean, how could this be? So I said to my parents, did you know about this? What did you do about this? And my father said, we did our best. It wasn't until I was Speaker of the House and went to, as first time visit to Israel as Speaker, I've been there many times, that the Jerusalem Post had a big editorial article saying, Speaker of the House comes by her love for Israel, her support for Israel naturally. And it told the story of my father when he was a congressman. He was a New Deal congressman, worshipped at the throne of Franklin Roosevelt, except disagreed with him on two important points. One was he wasn't paying enough attention to what was happening to Jewish people in Europe, and secondly, he wasn't fast enough, moving quickly enough to establish a Jewish state in what was then called Palestine. Franklin Roosevelt did not like a freshman New Deal Democrat disagreeing with him, especially when he went to the floor of the House. Now, when he learned this from later, because my father didn't tell me about it, but then I saw all the articles and everything. He went to the floor of the House, March in 1943. And if you would go to the congressional record and see his speech, it's very moving, but the gist of it was, and what the administration did not like, he talked about the fact, he said, I rise as a representative of the Jewish Men's Army. That was how he identified himself. He spoke Yiddish, and so even though Italian American, he spoke Yiddish and was on the campaign trail always talking about those two things, treatment of the Jews in Europe and establishing a state. Anyway, it's a long story. I won't go into all of it, although I already have some of it. But in this article, in this speech on the floor, he says that there's this homicide being committed in Europe by the Nazis only because of people's faith and what they believed. And he said 2 million people have already been slaughtered. This number is well documented and well known in the records of the U.S. State Department. That was quite an accusation at the time. But they kept fighting the fight until finally, you know the rest of it, but I was very proud to read that because it answered my question as a teenager. Did you know about this? What did you do about it? Around that same time, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt wrote in her short introduction to the diary of a young girl, Anne's diary is an appropriate monument to her fine spirit and the spirits of those who have worked and are working for peace. Each year, the Anne Frank Award honors a leader who carries on Anne Frank's inspiring vision. This year, the award to Anita Lowy, so well deserved. And so on behalf of the Congress, I congratulate you on receiving this well-deserved award. For over 3 decades in the Congress, you've made history and progress, including by becoming the first woman and first female chair and first Jewish chair of appropriations, ensuring spending aligned with our values, helping fight anti-Semitism and bigotry throughout your career, especially relaunching and leading the House bipartisan task force to combat anti-Semitism, which has bipartisan support here, as I referenced earlier, and helping confront intolerance with your Anita Lowy Middle East Partnership for Peace, which became law in 2020. As was referenced by the distinguished Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz a few years ago, in January 2020, received an invitation from the President of Israel to bring a delegation for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. So we assembled our group. We said it would be bipartisan, but I said nobody can come unless they would first visit Auschwitz with us. Some had already been, I had not. Indescribable evil. We walked the grounds, scarred by the indescribable evil. At the ghetto wall in Krakow, we laid roses to honor victims and survivors. Remember that day. At Yad Vashem, now then in Jerusalem, we prayed for the 1.5 million innocent children, including the namesake of the award you received today, Anne Frank. And we're so proud that you were recognized during this trip, for your lifelong efforts to build bridges between people. Her reputation is worldwide, is global when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism and in so many other values-based ways. It is crucial that leaders like Nita Lowy keep alive the message of Anne Frank in the memory of those killed in the Shoah. Sadly, shadows of same dark forces that led to the Holocaust still linger, as Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz referenced. In recent years, we've seen an alarming spike in anti-Semitism around the world, and sadly here at home, including at the Tree of Life shooting, the deadliest attack on the Jewish American community in recent history, perpetrated 3 years ago yesterday. We even witnessed an appalling invocation of the Holocaust during the January 6th attack on the Capitol. We must take decisive actions to stamp out the flames of hate, and for it is our moral duty to fulfill the promise of never again. And as we do so, we draw inspiration from the powerful example of Nita Lowy. As we carry on the fight against the dark forces of hate, we remember what Anne Frank wrote in her diary. A single candle can both defy and define the darkness. Nita, your leadership has helped light the way for a more peaceful future. Thank you. And you constantly remind us that we all have a role to play in building a world where difference is not tolerated, but welcomed and celebrated. While we sorely miss your voice in the House, I'm personally proud, now that Nita is gone, to proudly have reclaimed the title of grandmother of the most Jewish grandchildren in the Congress of the United States. Congratulations and best wishes for a wonderful celebration. Thank you again, Mr. Ambassador, for recognizing me.